you're on. I will confirm that for a moment, and terrific. Welcome, everyone. My name is Evelyn Mantilla, and I'm coming to you from Access Health Connecticut. And I'm really pleased to welcome you to today's webinar. We have a little bit of housekeeping to do. Please make sure that you keep your audio muted for the duration of the webinar. Also, we're always happy to answer questions that you may have as participants. We will answer them at the end of the presentation. So type any questions you may have into the chat box. Additionally, if you're experiencing technical difficulties with your audio, you can call in from your phone to the number that is showing on your screen right now. Lastly, the webinar link and presentation will be made available online. We are recording it, and it will be available to you at the learn.accesshealthct.com/community website. So with that, again, my name is Evelyn Mantilla, and I'm pleased to welcome you today. Let us get ready for the presentation. So that you know, I have on your screen right now the overview of the subjects that we're touching on this morning. And with that, I'd like to welcome Shelley Pierre, who is from Broker Support. And Shelley is going to share with us a little bit of information before we begin the actual presentation. Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you, Evelyn, and good afternoon, everyone. Just to preface what we're going to talk about going forward, to all of my brokers on the line, and if you can share with your broker friends. After the release last week, we are aware that the system has changed the login procedure. You will find that it is not doing the second level of authentication and asking for the semantic code. We are aware of this issue, and once you log in, the second level of this scenario is that once you log in, it may allow you to move around the site, or the moment you click on a tab, My Clients, or one of the quick links, it'll log you right back out. So this is intermittent, and you will find that at times you can navigate through the site, and at times you will not be able to. Our suggestion right now, in the meantime, is to clear your cache and open a new browser and attempt to log in again. Deb and myself and the team at Access Health and Deloitte are working on the fix. Right now, we do not have a timeline for when this will be corrected. So our suggestion in the meantime, again, is to clear your cache and open a new browser and attempt to log into the broker portal, but we are well aware of the situation at hand. Second thing I'd like to mention is about commissions. We've heard it before, or you've heard it from us before, that Access Health does not issue commissions. So if you do have any questions, please check with the carrier first. That is always the first stop, because they're the ones that actually pay out and will have their records. So if you start there, that is very helpful in when you come back to the team, the broker support team, so that we can research any outstanding items. That is all I have to share at this time. I thank you for your patience as we get the fix, and as soon as we have more information, we will share it forward to the broker community.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you so much. Alrighty, then with that, I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. Katie Hearn is our Training and Quality Assurance Manager. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, Shelley. Good afternoon. So we're going to go over a variety of topics today, as you can see. We have a lot of ground to cover. So we have, we no longer are in the uninsured special enrollment period. That was the special COVID-19 uninsured SEP that ended on April 17th. So we're going to talk about traditional special enrollment and traditional qualifying life events a little bit later on. And we're going to talk a little bit about choices for many residents in our state who are having to figure out what to do with job loss and so forth, regarding whether or not to elect COBRA coverage or to look at a plan on the individual market. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the suspension of 90-day verification requirements and the continued requirement that 30-day SEP verifications be submitted. We'll talk about some website enhancements. As you know, we had a release on April 17th, and there was a little bit of fallout from that, but there were also a lot of good changes that came with the release. We'll talk a little bit about the response to COVID-19 and the Federal CARES Act, which includes federal pandemic unemployment compensation, stimulus checks, and pandemic unemployment assistance. And then we will have Q&A at the end. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned, our special uninsured step that was created for the COVID crisis is no longer in play, but special enrollments are still available. Anyone with a qualifying life event can still enroll through a 60-day special enrollment period, 60-day special enrollment window, right? So traditional qualifying life events like losing minimum essential coverage, moving to Connecticut from out of another state accompanied by loss of MEC, all of those types of things can still be used to enroll through Access Health in an individual plan at this time. Applicants will be asked to provide proof of their qualifying life event. So the window for that is 30 days to submit that verification document to prove the qualifying life event. And as I said, there was for a period of time, and we're still, I believe, in that period, some folks were given 45 days to submit proof of their qualifying life event. But we always recommend that consumers get in their QLE verification as soon as possible so that their coverage can effectuate, because their coverage pends until they send in and have that verification document approved. And as usual, of course, they must pay their first bill for their coverage to effectuate. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, Access Health has many qualified health plan options. So when you're talking to, I'm sorry?
Would you mind holding for a second? We're getting some extraneous noise, and I just wanted to do a quick reminder for everyone to be sure that they are muted while the presentation goes on. I apologize for that.
Okay, sure. So the best time for someone to look into what options are available to them might be before they elect COBRA coverage. Access Health is a place where they can go to compare plans before making a decision. So this slide just kind of serves as a reminder of that. And also to remind everyone that if someone does elect to take COBRA, decides later on, oh, you know, I'd rather go and explore my options through Access Health, well, they can't voluntarily terminate their COBRA coverage in order to enroll during the special enrollment period with Access Health, because that is not a qualifying life event. COBRA actually has to come to its sort of natural end in order for it to be a qualifying life event. They can't just voluntarily disenroll from it and come on the exchange. However, if, and many companies do this, if a consumer's COBRA coverage was being subsidized by their former employer, and the employer stopped making payments for the COBRA, that very often is a qualifying life event. So that would entitle someone to come on through the exchange and enroll in a qualified health plan during special enrollment. So keep in mind the following: if you do already have COBRA, be conscious of your end date, and because when it does end, you have 60 days to enroll through the exchange. And again, best time to compare prices and plans is before enrolling in anything. Next slide, please. Okay. So right now, as a reminder, the 90-day verification requirement is on hold. It has been suspended until further notice. So this includes income verification, immigration documents, any of the 90-day verifications are suspended. However, you should still encourage your clients to send in any verification documents that have been requested of them. Eventually, these documents will need to be submitted. So please remind anyone who has received a request for a VCL item to get those documents in as soon as possible. This eventually, the hold on the 90-day VCL will eventually be lifted. They can go to their inbox in their consumer portal account to check what notices might be relevant to them. So please remind them of that. Next slide, please. Okay, so release 27 was a responsive design release, primarily. So one of the major goals of the release, which was deployed April 17th, was to make the screens viewable on all sorts of devices and platforms across operating systems and across browsers, right? So hopefully now if you're looking at accesshealthct.com on a smartphone or a tablet or any kind of laptop, you're going to have a better experience. The screens look a bit crisper and cleaner. They should fit the screen that you're using, and so a lot of work did go into making the consumer portal more aesthetically pleasing and more responsive to devices across the board. Next, please. Okay. In addition to the responsive aspect of the release, there were a few other tickets worth noting. Some of these affected the worker portal as well as the consumer portal. So one was it was a text change for the identity check. So the text in the consumer portal used to direct those with an identity hard stop to call Experian, the credit reporting agency. That text has been changed so that it now directs the consumer to the call center. It will no longer direct the consumer to call Experian. Another change was also a text change. The password reset lock page used to direct consumers who had locked themselves out of their account after too many login attempts, used to direct them to the call center to be unlocked and reset. Now they have options. The text gives them the option of using the forgot password link so that they can reset it themselves electronically. There is usually a 15-minute wait, and the text says this, 15-minute wait to get back into the account, but they can do that. They always could do it actually without calling the call center, but now the text informs the consumer that they can reset their own password without having to call the call center. Or if they wish to call the call center to get back into their account, they may. So those two options are now listed on the screen. There was a minor update to the 1405 notice. That's the notice reminding consumers that they will be turning 65 and that they may want to consider their next steps, particularly if they are Medicare eligible. There's no major changes to that notice in terms of its purpose, but there have been some language updates. Hopefully it's a little bit clearer. Also, there was an enhancement made that affects both consumer portal and worker portal, and that is with tax status validation. This is something that should help CACs, brokers, consumers alike to reduce the number of errors with regard to tax status inputs in the application. So one example here is an individual selects married filing taxes together, but did not select married as their marital status. That individual would not be able to proceed with the application without making some kind of modification, and they would get a validation message in a pink box questioning that tax status. So that would happen in a number of different tax status combinations. So it's just a double check. Are you sure this is the tax status you meant to select, and so on. So that's a good update to the HIX system. Next, please. Okay, as I mentioned, the new uninsured SEP ended April 17th, but special enrollment continues in the traditional way. Terminations for failure to verify, the 90-day verifications, are on hold. Provisional enrollments for qualifying life events continue. There is a segment of the population that was given 45 days instead of 30 days to verify their qualifying life event. If they are among those who have the extra time, they would have received a notice stating that. Medicaid CHIP extensions, qualified health plan enrollments. This is something that you should be aware of. There are several thousand consumers who had their Medicaid extended for 3 months. So for example, consumers who were enrolled in Medicaid through the end of March, but then transitioned to QHP, had their Medicaid extended for April, May, and June. So even though their eligibility changed after their Medicaid ended in March initially, and they went into a QHP, DSS has extended their Medicaid such that they will remain in the program that they were in March through the end of June. And you should be aware that there will be additional waves of this. In other words, consumers who will be losing Medicaid at the end of April are likely to have a Medicaid extension of 3 months, meaning that their Medicaid then would end at the end of July, and so on. And we'll keep you informed about these Medicaid extensions. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Some consumers will experience some overlap of coverage. So there will be clients now who maybe have that Medicaid extension and also have a QHP for the month of April. And certainly that 1 month of overlap is okay. Okay, thank you. Next slide. Okay, so we're gonna switch gears a little bit now and talk about the CARES Act. So there have been several different programs aimed at assisting people during this COVID-19 crisis. And this chart here talks about some of those, and it talks about how you're supposed to count it in terms of Medicaid and qualified health plan subsidy eligibility. So the first line there says IRS stimulus checks. So for IRS stimulus checks, that is generally up to $1,200 per adult and $500 for each child. Those checks are excluded from both the Medicaid CHIP monthly income calculation and the APTC and CSR annual income calculation. So you would not include that in MAGI for consideration on the application for either one, the stimulus checks. Additional unemployment is a little bit trickier. Many people receiving traditional unemployment are being given additional unemployment in the amount of $600 per week. And for the purposes of Medicaid and CHIP monthly income, that additional unemployment, that $600 per week amount, is excluded. It is not counted. But for the purposes of APTC and CSR eligibility for qualified health plans, in the annual income section, that additional unemployment, that $600 per week on top of whatever their base unemployment is, right, is included. So all of their unemployment is included for the purpose of calculating QHP subsidies. And that's in the annual income section. And traditional unemployment on that last line there, as usual, is included and has always been included as part of modified adjusted gross income for both Medicaid and CHIP calculations and APTC and CSR eligibility. And it does say in the fine print there, it says this extra benefit will be available through July 31st. I think that is correct. I think it might actually be July 25th, but that's about right. I did see a really good article in The Current this weekend. It's called "The Additional $600 Unemployment Benefit Will Start in Connecticut Monday. Here's what you need to know." That was just in the paper yesterday. I think it's really good at talking about these unemployment programs under the federal pandemic unemployment compensation. So there's two things. There's federal pandemic unemployment compensation, which is additional money in the amount of $600 per week on top of regular unemployment. And then there's another program aimed at self-employed individuals called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. And as I said, I think that Current article does a good job of summarizing those programs if you want to take a look at that. And down here we have a link to the Connecticut Department of Labor site. That also goes into this link here goes into a great deal of detail regarding these federal pandemic unemployment compensation programs. Next slide, please. Okay, so in addition to the help given individuals through stimulus checks and through unemployment benefits, there is help for small businesses. The Corona Aid Relief and Economic Securities Act, or CARES Act, was signed into law, and it contains $376 billion in relief for American workers and small businesses. These funds are allocated to several new temporary programs, most administered by the U.S. Small Business Administration. Some of the most sought after programs are the Paycheck Protection Program, the EIDL Loan Advance, the SBA Express Bridge Loans, and SBA Debt Relief programs. Payroll Protection Program loans. Who is eligible? Small businesses, generally under 500 employees. The cost of these loans may be forgivable if your small business meets specific requirements. Loans can be for up to 2 months of the average monthly payroll costs for the last year, plus an additional 25% of that amount. The amount is subject to a $10 million cap. Governor Lamont's 60-day grace period for insurance premiums from April 1st through June 1st of 2020. There's Executive Order 7S, which mandates that no Connecticut insurer may lapse or terminate a covered insurance policy because a policyholder does not pay a premium or interest during this time. So there is a grace period for insurance premiums that the carriers have to follow. This is something else that you should be aware of if anyone receives notice from their carriers, for example, about delinquent payments. You'd want to refer them to the carriers to make sure that that's correct, because there are additional grace periods being given at this time. The grace period is not a waiver or forgiveness of the premium. It's only an extension of time in which to pay premiums. So again, that's an important thing to be aware of if people are falling behind in their payments. If they have billing questions, I would highly recommend that you refer them to their carriers to ensure that they are given the appropriate amount of time to make payments. Next slide, please. Okay, and marketing's put together a really nice slide here with a lot of resources. They've been updating the Learn More pages on the Access Health website. So for general information, you can go to learn.accesshealthct.com. There are additional links here. There's a broker page, learn.accesshealthct.com/brokers. And there's another one for community partners, learn.accesshealthct.com/community. Special enrollment public service announcements can be found in both Spanish and English at the links below. And of course, you can follow Access Health on a variety of social media sites. Thank you.
Oh, I apologize for the deck ending prematurely like this. Let me pull it right back up, and we will go to our question and answer session. So we have had a couple of questions, as we usually do, at the end of our webinars, and we've had a couple of them that were submitted to us ahead of time. So let me pose these questions to you. One of them is pretty simple. It says, are there any extensions for renewal due to COVID-19 for redeterminations?
Thanks, Evelyn. So I did mention the Medicaid extension. So if we're talking about Medicaid, folks who lost their Medicaid at the end of March, and this goes for all Husky and CHIP programs that are offered through Access Health, they will get an additional 3 months in whatever program that they were in March. And that will happen again in April, and it is likely to happen again beyond April as well. So as far as Husky CHIP programs goes, there are 3-month extensions available. And as far as the new uninsured special SEP goes, that has been discontinued. I don't know that will be reinitiated. We haven't gotten any word that will be started up again. That ended on April 17th.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have another question that was also submitted to us ahead of time. It may be a case-specific question that we may need to redirect, but it goes as such. Can separated individuals file for insurance as a household of one? If yes, can individuals still file as a household if living on the same apartment or house, but in a separate unit? I'm going to direct that one to Deb so that you can give us a little guidance, or perhaps direct the question, the person posing the question correctly.
Hi, Evelyn, thanks. If I'm understanding the question correctly, can that individual that lives in the separate unit fill out an application separately? If that is the case, I would say yes to that. And Katie, I'm looking, is there any other response? Anybody that's in a household that are living in the same household should be reported together. And if they're in a separate unit, they can do an application separately.
I would just say if that could be if that case could be emailed to someone who could take a closer look at it, I think that would be the best course of action.
Okay, that makes sense. We know, and we are sensitive about the fact that sometimes very detailed cases need to be addressed individually. And so for that reason, we encourage you to contact us with the details. So let me move on to questions that are being posed by our participants. We really appreciate you putting them into the chat box. One of them is, why is the verification department for documents so behind? When will they catch up? Who would like to answer that question?
Evelyn, this is Deb. I can take that on a separate, I'm not sure that there is a backlog, and if there is, I'd have to get more information of what the timing is on that.
Very good. Okay, terrific. So,
So the broker that has that question, Evelyn, if they could send that into the broker support mailbox, I would appreciate it with the details, and then I can take a look.
okay, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, next question we have reads as such. On the on the DSS extension, how do I know whether my clients are one? Will the notice be updated to their Access Health Connecticut inbox? Uploaded, I should say, to their Access Health Connecticut inbox?
This is Katie. So they will receive a notice in the mail, and it will say Medicaid extension up near the upper right-hand corner. This is not one of the automated notices that you're used to seeing from us. So that's a great question. Is anyone from marketing on the line who could answer if this would be available in their inbox? Okay, I can take that back. This notice is a little bit non-traditional, so I don't know, but it would definitely be sent to their address.
Very good. Thank you, Katie. All right. Let me remind everyone, if you look at your chat box, we have posted the email addresses for both brokers and CACs to contact us directly. You'll see the brokers should contact the broker support group by emailing AHCT brokersupport@ct.gov. CACs, on the other hand, are encouraged to contact us by emailing ird.outreach@ct.gov. I have another question on the line. Consumers say that they had extended chats last week with Access Health Connecticut. Explain this functionality. What is the criteria for DSS extension? It would be helpful to know. Was that a clear question?
Evelyn, this is Deb.
Mm-hmm.
I think Katie covered the Medicaid extension information.
Okay. Very well.
I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure what that question is asking.
Very good. Perhaps let me break it down this way. I think it looks to me like we have a couple of separate issues wrapped up on the same question. And one of them, we knew that we had received a comment before regarding the quality of the answers coming through in the chats. And I believe we wanted to address that towards the end of the webinar. But the second one is about the DSS extension, which you did in fact address. So let me call, I believe it should be Deb. Did we have some information that we wanted to share with people or guide them to the right way to contact us to look into the situation with the chats?
Yes, Evelyn, if there's concerns about inconsistent messaging in the chat, if you can send that information, either the date of the chat or any information pertinent to that chat, I can do some research and just let me know through the AHCT broker support mailbox. We can take a look at that, and if there's some gaps in the response, we'll definitely work on getting that corrected. But until I know exactly what the information is, it's hard to figure out how to go back and do some coaching on that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you so much, Deb. I remind everyone, don't forget that you can contact us directly through the broker support email or the CAC email addresses that we have posted on the chat box. So I want to encourage anyone else who is still participating to let us know if you have any additional questions on the chat box. and I'll give a moment for any others to come through. I do want to say that Access Health Connecticut really appreciates that you take the time to participate in our webinars to get the correct information out and disseminate it to everyone who needs it. And we know that everyone is working their hardest. Oftentimes, those of us working from home are trying hard to, really serve the people that Access Health Connecticut serves to the best of our ability. We do appreciate you taking the time to participate. And with that, I think I see that we have one other question. It says, where will this review be posted in case we want to review it? Okay, very good. That's a question that we always talk about, that the webinar itself is being recorded and will be posted, excuse me, and it will be posted. Primarily, you'll be able to see it on the community webpage, which is, actually, let me ask if someone can post it on the chat box so that we don't get it incorrectly. I believe it's the Learn More website. So it will be made available to you after this, and you can review it at your leisure. All right, I have one more question that I'll ask, and then I think we can get to the end of our webinar. This question reads as such: do you cross-match individuals' tax returns to ensure that they are accurately reporting their marital status? Who would be able to answer that question?
This is Deb. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, so do we match up what they report on their application with what is filed with the IRS? We just take for what they attested to as far as their tax status, and that's submitted with the information on their application as well as their 1095A form.
Got it. Very good. Okay. We have also posted on the chat box the website that you can see the recording of today's webinar is in fact learn.accesshealthct.com/community. And let me ask, we have another question regarding commissions, and I really just want to call on Deb so that you can repeat some of the information that you shared with us at the beginning regarding payment and commission and how to direct people correctly.
Yes, any commission question should first go to the carriers, depending on which carrier you're asking about. And then if it continues to be an issue with something that might have gone over on the 834, then you can contact the broker support mailbox. But please first go to the carrier if you have any commission questions.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Thank you so much for that answer. Alrighty, very well. With that, then I'm going to get to the end of today's webinar. We do want to thank you not just for taking the time to participate in this, but for working so hard, as everyone does, to serve the residents of Connecticut to obtain their quality health insurance. I want to also do a quick shout out to thank all of those workers that are on the front lines of this very difficult time on behalf of Access Health Connecticut, so that everyone knows that we appreciate everything that is being done, that your hard work is very much noticed and appreciated, and that as we move forward with this period, we will always get through this together. So do count on Access Health Connecticut continuing to disseminate the accurate information that we need to disseminate, and we appreciate your assisting us in that way. So with that, I will close the seminar. Thank you again for participating, and have a great rest of your afternoon. Please be safe and be healthy. Thank you.